Today, transportation innovation. Are electric vehicles inevitable or stuck in the mud?
Then, a peek into privacy. Moscow's metro now knows who you are by your face.
And can AI predict the future? The Pentagon is betting it can.
I'm Steven Rosenbaum, and this is Future Forward.
I'm Alexa Scordato. Let's launch.
Hey, Alexa.
Hey, Steve. Happy Sunday. Happy fall, officially, because it's cold out.
I have to say, I think this show is going to be so much fun. I'm so excited to talk about particularly electric and driverless vehicles and what's happening in transportation. And maybe if we take a really long time talking about that, we can go so long that we won't have time to talk about the Defense Department and the fact that they're going to try and see the future, because the Pentagon thing is just super creepy.
Yeah. All right. Let's get right into it.
All right, here we go. So let's just start with the Porsche story, because this is the one that blew my mind.
Okay.
Porsche's all-electric vehicle that I don't know how to pronounce it.
Taycan? Taycan? Okay.
Taycan is outselling the flagship 911 sports vehicle.
Yep. And it's grown 13% year over year.
Do you know anyone who's owned a Porsche?
No.
So I do. I have tech friends, and so Porsche drivers are, you go to any of the big tech companies, they're in the parking lot. They are such car snobs. They are motorhead car snobs. And the fact that motorhead car snobs are buying electric vehicles more than they're buying gasoline powered vehicles, for me, is like a fundamental game-changing moment, like a big deal.
Because it basically means it's in vogue to drive electric. I think, don't you credit Tesla with that?
So again, I have real car stuff. Their romance with their vehicle is it's the sound of the engine. It's the feeling of it's the way it, I mean, these, like, it's orgasmic. It's like the fact, and the pushback on electric cars by gas car owners has always been, it's just not it's a little like, it's not the same thing. It's, when you're driving a gas, you feel the engine and the pistons and the truth is, electric cars do drive differently. They're quieter. They don't roar. They don't go roar. They don't do all that car, kind of car stuff.
Right.
So Tesla, the growth of Tesla, I saw as an outlier, because it was a new community of high tech, moneyed. We want a Tesla. It's a beautiful car, but it's like you weren't shifting over from gas to Tesla. I mean, you were shifting over from a hybrid, right? Like that you were already environmentally connected and techie. The Porsche community shifting over, to me, is a much more exciting moment, because it means you can imagine in the future, in 5 years, 6 years, 10 years, but not 0 years. When people say, when gasoline powered vehicles are kind of like vinyl for music lovers,
or just stick shift. I don't know anyone who drives a stick.
No, you wouldn't buy one today. Mm-hmm. There'd be no reason to. So, I've never driven. Well, to be fair, I've never driven a Porsche, but I've also never driven a Porsche electric vehicle. But,
mm-hmm. I think it's, to your point about Tesla being niche. I think the market and sort of like the conscious consumer or driver has broadened like significantly. And when you think about, the popularization of, say, the Honda Civic, right, which I feel like Leonardo DiCaprio made a whole big deal about like, oh, I'm driving an electric vehicle. What is an electric car? That sort of narrative started when some kids were like getting their permits and driver's licenses. Those drivers are now in their 30s. And so I feel like they are combining the status of Porsche or luxury cars with their like current values around climate change and environmental footprint. And I think
All
that's
right.
not a trend. I think it's just how the market has shifted because of demographics.
All right. So do you know this company called Turo?
Mm-hmm. You can
So
just,
you
it's like
can,
Airbnb for your car.
right. So I just went onto Turo and typed in Porsche. And it turns out for $142 a day, you can have a Porsche 911. Now, I don't, oh, here we go. No, this is the, I want to
Cayman,
see if
not Tayman.
Cayman. Yeah, Cayman, not Tayman. All right. So I don't see electric vehicles yet in the Porsche variety, but just for fun,
It's
let's
too
just,
new. I feel like the Turo inventory skews towards cars that are at least like 5+ years old.
maybe, but I did at one point on Turo find,
You can find Teslas.
yeah. So here's a Tesla. I didn't, is there a gull wing Tesla? I've never seen that before.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So I think next weekend I'm going to spend $179. Well, 218 though. I want a more recent one. All right. Anyway, I'm
If
now
you take a
I'm now
joyride, come visit me.
all right. Well, I think I would like a recent so let's move to the next topic because it all ties together. And let's talk about Tesla and the driverless Tesla.
Okay.
So Tesla just this weekend started rolling out full self-driving vehicles, which prompted some criticism from regulators and safety advocates, according to the Washington Post. I did not know that Tesla, I mean, I think the line between full auto and essentially autonomous is blurry. But like I have driven an autonomous Tesla. I have been I don't know what you call it, someone sitting in the driver's seat who's not driving, not a passenger.
Um,
Passenger.
there's like a whole new like probably vocabulary around this. A rider.
Yeah, it scared the hell out of me. I'm not gonna lie.
Okay.
I wanted
Say more.
so this was in Vancouver, and it was on a windy road, and it drove very well and very fast, and it wasn't scary because it behaved badly. It was scary because I didn't trust it to not see a squirrel on the road and drive into a tree.
Yeah.
Um,
So
or
So I think about this a lot. So I have not been in a self-driving anything. I've used like cruise control, which also, full disclosure, freaks me out as a driver, right? To not have my foot on the pedal, but just have both feet on the floor of the car. That kind of freaks me out. I've gotten more used to it, but the idea of taking your hand off a steering wheel is scary. I'm curious if when you get into a car with a person you don't know, do you trust that person's driving skills more, the same, or less than the, I guess, self-driving system in the Tesla?
so you're asking exactly the right question, which is why I'm struggling to answer it. People are terrible drivers.
They're horrible drivers, right? Like we shouldn't trust half the people we get into cars with.
Yeah.
We don't know what their driving history is. We don't know if they've ever gotten to an accident. We don't know if they're risk averse. We don't know if they know where they're going.
They have terrible eyesight. They have bad hand-eye coordination. They've been drinking. They have a heart attack and you die. I mean, yeah,
right.
No. I mean, driving is incredibly dangerous on the roads today. And if you could flash forward 10 years and every vehicle on the highway was driven by an autonomous robot brain, the number of people who die in car accidents would go down dramatically, spectacularly. But the problem is between now and then, if I make up the numbers, I don't have them in front of me. If 1 out of 1,000 drivers is going to get into an accident today, and 1 out of 1 million driverless cars is going to get into an accident today. The problem is that the story about the Tesla that hits the baby carriage or whatever the terrible story is going to be the one that makes the news. I mean, if you or I got into a car accident and hurt somebody or hurt ourselves or just dinged our car, that will not make the news. That's not news.
Right.
I mean, the only time that stuff makes the news is when a kid's school bus driver, has a heart attack and dies and the bus hits a tree. I mean,
or there's like a huge recall.
Right. So net, I don't doubt that even today, the self-driving Tesla is safer than the human head to head. But the problem is people aren't going to accept that.
Yeah. So I think it's going to take me time to get used to it, but I eventually will. And I talk about this with Matt, my husband, all the time. I want to live in a future where when I'm older, I have a car that drives me around. So I moved out of the city. I spent the pandemic in Pennsylvania. I'm now up in Westchester. I see some horrible driving from elderly people. Horrible. And I love my grandmother. She's 86. But I much prefer my parents taking her to her doctor's appointments than her getting into a car. And so it's there's a part of me that's I want this technology to be successful, and I want widespread adoption of it. And I want a future where people can get from A to B and have to be self-reliant.
I went to Brooklyn today and the car pulled up out front. It was an Uber. I got in the Uber. The driver said, "Steve," and I said, "Yes." That was the last thing he said to me for 50 minutes, which was fine with me. We got to our destination. It occurred to me that not only is the computer telling him the directions, he doesn't need to know where he's going. He doesn't need to know Brooklyn. He doesn't need to know that it's better to take the BQE later in the afternoon. That's all coming from not Google Maps, but some Uber version of Google Maps, which I should know what it is.
Waze.
And so
no,
it's Waze, but it's also they have a customized driver instruction system. It also said there's a train tracks coming up ahead, and it told him that there was a traffic camera. That was Waze, yeah. But he's already the equivalent of being told by a computer how to take me to my destination. So Uber's big gamble is that they can put a driverless Tesla in the Uber network, and you could say, send the Tesla to go pick up grandma and take her to the doctor's appointment. And there will be nobody in the front seat.
Right.
And so Tesla did an interesting thing, which ties to this whole question, because the real question about driverless vehicles isn't are they safer than humans? It's who's responsible if there's an accident.
Right.
Who do you sue?
So Tesla, and this now gets into insurance.
Yeah, it's all about insurance. So Tesla has now officially launched an insurance product using real-time driving behavior. And the product is only available in Texas because Why
Texas.
wouldn't, yeah, Texas, right. So the automaker has introduced its own insurance product in California, but it doesn't utilize real-time driving data for its safety score. So essentially the car is telling the insurance company, Alexa gets a good deal on insurance because she drives safely.
Yeah.
And
And it's
theoretically,
dynamic, right? Like it doesn't say in the article, but I would love to know how long the policy lasts. Like, can you get billed $112 month one and then billed $156 month two because it saw you ran over a squirrel?
and by the way, and who's sitting in that room going, okay, what's the, anyway, the squirrel doesn't sue you, so I suppose it doesn't. The squirrel maybe doesn't. Do you get points off for the squirrel?
I don't know, but like
Probably.
roadkill. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hitting
Um,
objects.
um, so the fact that Tesla is both at the same time, essentially in the same news cycle, releasing a driverless product that Tesla owners can request, and also getting in the insurance business, you know, it's super smart. They see where it's going. Having your vehicle come with its own insurance policy,
Mm-hmm.
that because the one thing Tesla knows is it knows exactly how safe its vehicle is, right?
Yep. I mean, what's so interesting is to even think about the impact on like the reseller market, right? Like when you can buy a car and it's like certified pre-owned, right? Like if you think about someone buying a Tesla through the lens of certified pre-owned and Tesla being able to tell you like the history of the car and how it's been driven at that level of detail, because usually you just get like the facts like, oh, there's never been in an accident, right? Here's how many miles. Like it's very basic stuff.
So they could say it's never driven above the speed limit. It's never gotten a ticket. Oh, that's
Right.
a good question.
Or it could be like
Wait,
it was driven in these conditions. Like
oh,
it
oh,
only
oh,
it's like a
oh.
station car. Like it only was used for a commute.
So you're driving. So the cop's driving down the highway, and it decides it wants to pull you over, and it pulls over the Tesla, right? I mean, does it ticket the car? Does it ticket the passenger? Who does the cop ticket?
It has to ticket a person who's liable unless the car was in self-drive mode, in which case I would argue Tesla needs to actually own up to that.
But that's great. I love this question. This is a really fun question. So and then the other question is, can you ask your Tesla to go over the speed limit? I mean, on the
Right.
highway, the big highways, the speed limit 65 miles an hour. People routinely drive 70 or 75. Can you say to your Tesla, I know that Google Maps is telling you the speed limit 65, but for fuck's sake, can we please go 70? I'm late.
It must have a way of like knowing to move with traffic. Because there are times when you're doing 65, everyone's doing 80, you will get ticketed for actually then causing traffic.
There's got to be a whiteboard somewhere
I mean,
where
I
this is
like this. I wish we could just interview a panel of the engineers who have to code the logic into the car in the same way that, it's so abstract. Like, how does Google decide what's number one in search results? It's like, how is Tesla determining how the car drives? What are all of the inputs that go into that?
okay. Yeah,
Hundreds.
and laws and then local norms. Okay,
Mhm.
so which brings us, I think, then to the next big question, because electric vehicles and autonomous vehicles they're related topics, but they're not identical. So then the question is, if all these things are happening in real time, which it seems like they are, and I think I may have said this on the pod a couple of weeks back, but when I was driving upstate, maybe 3 or 4 weekends ago, I stopped at one of those throughway rest stops, and there was a row of Tesla charging stations.
Yep.
No other brand, just Tesla, all branded Tesla, like, and full of cars. So we're seeing plug-in cars become the reality. The question is the grid not ready? And what does it mean if all of these electric cars don't have electricity?
And
So
the
this is a
answer right
Washington
now
Post
is
article.
it definitely is
Yeah.
not ready. Forget like Con Edison can't handle New Yorkers keeping their air conditioning on in the summer in a heat wave right now.
So this brings us inexorably to the Biden administration, which has been slugging away trying to get this infrastructure plan through. And golly, one of the big pieces in it is improving the grid and being ready for electric cars.
Right. But
Yeah.
it's a slog to get this thing passed.
So, which is why I think the opening of the pod was exactly right, which is, are electric vehicles inevitable or stuck in the mud?
I mean, we have to burn the candle from both ends, right? Change happens slowly and then all at once. So you probably have consumer demand going up, whatever, 13% year over year in the case of Porsche, and then nothing budging in terms of like the infrastructure piece. But eventually it'll happen. I have to believe it'll happen.
So
you're gonna have enough senators and Congress people who are gonna retire, and 30 something, 30, 40, 50-year-old something electric vehicle Tesla Porsche drivers making legislation in the next decade or two who want it.
I think I would have trouble right now going and buying well, I'm not going to buy a new car because I live in New York, but if I were going to buy a new car, I think I'd have trouble buying a non-electric car.
Yeah.
And if then the question would be, does my building garage have an electric plug, and how does that work? And do they charge me for the electric? I don't think any of the infrastructure is ready for this.
We considered buying electric or a hybrid, and for things like the logistics around charging it's not an easy decision now, but is it something that we want to be in a position to do in the future? Like, absolutely.
Yeah. If you had a garage and the garage had an outlet in it, so if you were a suburban driver, you'd be fine, as long as then when you drove to work in the parking lot, there was a plug for every vehicle in the all right, this is freaking me out. So let's go to Moscow for our second topic. So I either love or hate this topic.
Me too. And I feel like
Moscow is now rolling out facial recognition for their pay system.
Yeah.
It occurred to me the other day as I was subwaying in New York that the difference between the click the right-hand side of your phone to get the credit card to pay the whatever the thing is at your local deli, and the NFC, where you literally just walk in and hold your phone over it as you get onto the subway, is so much more elegant.
Of course, 10,000%.
So, and my phone already does facial recognition. Mm-hmm. So would I care? I mean, presumably the MTA is, took a look at Moscow and went, oh, could we do that? I mean, I don't know.
I mean, this is where I struggle, right? Like, and sometimes I feel like it's such a hypocrite because I, depending on the day, really want to retain perceived privacy and ownership of my data. And then there are other times when I'm like, it's okay, no big deal. Like, we were just talking about Tesla and self-driving. I'm like, sure, Tesla can have my data. Tesla can literally, I'm okay if Tesla literally knows where I drive every day for the rest of my life if I had a Tesla. But for some reason, if the MTA knew every single time I entered a turnstile in the subway system, I'm like less okay with that. And I think maybe some of it has to do with like, is this a tech first company? Do I have a history as a consumer with trusting them? The MTA is like probably the biggest thorn in my side living in New York. Like the amount of times I've been like really screwed over by the MTA.
So the other thing I found fascinating about this is a piece from The Guardian about the Moscow metro, which I just also like saying, is I guess I don't think of Russia as being that tech forward. So how they beat us to facial and did they do it for crime purposes?
I mean, there's a society that clearly has an authoritarian top-down mindset. So maybe they're just predisposed to opting into a system like this. So I don't know.
What about China? Does China have facial recognition on its
travel? Oh yeah, I mean, I think that's why, like with the COVID, right? They were more equipped to tracking it because they basically just had apps installed on people's phones to verify contact tracing, which is something we were never in a position to do in the United States.
All right, so let's go to our last story because we just got 2 minutes left, and let's talk about the Pentagon. So the Pentagon wants AI to predict events before they occur.
I mean, we just went from like the Tom Cruise movie, A Minority Report, to now we're like The Circle.
Matrix.
Yeah.
So here, let me just read. Let me read. This is from IEEE Spectrum. What if, by leveraging today's artificial intelligence to predict events several days in advance, countries like the United States could simply avoid warfare in the first place? Sounds like the ultimate form of deterrence, a strategy that would save everyone all sorts of trouble, and it's a type of visionary thinking that is driving the U.S. military command and senior defense policymakers toward rapid adoption of artificial intelligence-enabled situational awareness. I'm not sure visionary. That seems a little pejorative to me to call it visionary thinking. I mean, wouldn't it also mean you could know where your enemy's moving their troops and get there first? I mean, would you only use it to avoid conflict, or would you use it to win?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, again, I think so much of AI is built off of existing known inputs. And so how would a system like this respond to the novel coronavirus? Right? All they would have to lean on is existing pandemic data. And I just feel like there's just so much nuance around how people, governments, societies are responding to the pandemic. Like, how would AI save us in this case?
Yeah, I mean, you know, the military does lots of R&D. I mean, DARPA certainly does all kinds of stuff. It's a famous story. I was at a TED conference years ago, and this woman was on stage from Google giving an amazing presentation about some AI subject, and I don't remember. It was a long time ago. She walked off the stage, and they announced the next day that she'd been hired to lead DARPA. Now, clearly, it didn't happen in the green room. I mean, this had been going on for a long time.
Yeah.
But I was like, okay, but interesting they chose not to tell that bit of information before she was on the TED stage.
Right.
All right, so just to rerun the show, autonomous driving, good. Facial recognition in subways, question mark. The military predicting the future and moving weapons around to be based on AI, maybe a little just flat out creepy.
Yeah. I just don't think it's going to happen.
Oh, you don't think it's going to happen? Well, that's different. All right, we are out of time. That was a really fun show. I really, really want to go buy a Tesla.
Time flies. I hope you rent one next weekend. Come visit.
Yeah, I think maybe that'll happen. All right, till then, bye-bye. See ya.